Okay. All right. So, hey, everybody out there in reopennc. Ashley here. Today, I have the pleasure of having Jax on with us from Apex Tattoo Factory. I'm sure you guys have heard all about him in the last couple of weeks. So he and I have been talking a lot, about the deaths of despair and the other kind of side effects of this shutdown, not just an economic one and not just the virus itself. This thing is just so multifaceted, and something that has come to my attention like the first or second week. I had a good friend a very close friend of theirs, took their own life. And then every single week since then, I've had like 4 or 5 people now that I know that have a suicide in their circle, in their close circles. And so I've been talking to the media about this a lot, the deaths of despair. And I've found several different statistics and kind of, I've been doing my own research. But just yesterday, CBS News actually came out, and a big doctor, they've done a big study now. They're saying it's anywhere from 75,000 to possibly 150,000 deaths of despair from, drug overdoses, suicide, all the like health effects that come with anxiety and depression and just all these different things. So unfortunately now Jax had brought it to my attention that he has a story to share about this very thing. So we just thought it was a good opportunity to come together and have a conversation about this, because it's hard to talk about, and it's a tragedy, and it's something that everybody needs to have in their, kind of in their what they're thinking about with this, because it's not just one thing. It's not just one cause of death that we need to be talking about. But, if every life truly matters, then these people's lives matter too. So we need to talk about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that number that you just stated, if it's on the high end, and now it outgrosses the COVID deaths. So now we've lost twice as many to Governor Cooper's, communist regime there. And yes, a lot of people are suffering right now. It hit home for us 2 days ago with a great friend, a veteran firefighter for the Apex Police Department. And, these guys, they're kind of old school. You've been in there 30 years. You pretty much know you can handle it for the most part. But when the work stops, all you're left with is your thoughts. And, he cried out to me, days before, saying his depression was getting to him. And as much as I tried to be on the phone with him and answer every text message, we found out the other day in the morning that he had committed suicide. So we're still struggling with it. It's so unbelievable that he specifically told me that the lack of work and not being able to go to work he was left with nothing but his thoughts. And unfortunately, a lot of people, like you said, go to drugs and they'll go to alcohol, especially when you're doing nothing but sitting home. And you can't just take all the pills in the world and it'll help you. You're still left with your thoughts. And
Right.
Unfortunately, as a recovering alcoholic, he went back to drinking. And he made it a point to specifically tell me that it was all because if he could just go back to work, he'd be fine. And I don't think people realize that work to some people is a release. Same with the domestic abuse stuff.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that people are just not talking about. And that's why, when you said that, I really wanted to have you on to talk about this, because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was a victim of child abuse growing up. And my parents got a divorce when I was 7, but my dad was abusive prior to that. And, so I know firsthand school was an escape, and, work was an escape for my mom, and us being able to function and not be isolated. Community was such a big deal. Had we been stuck at home, which my dad repented and he became, a God-fearing man. And then when he passed away, I believe he was forgiven, and I forgive him, but there's people who are not fortunate enough now to have that escape. And like you just said, like work, I mean, it's an outlet for people, whatever their job is, be it essential or non-essential. Like if you're an artist, then that's your job and that's your outlet. That's your creative, way to get those feelings out. It's a processing for people. And
Well,
so,
yeah, and even as a small business owner, right? We
right.
learned, we adapted our lives to 80-hour weeks,
Yes.
and having this baby, even though it wasn't an actual baby, it always feels like a baby.
Oh,
And now
yeah.
all of a sudden that baby's left somewhere. Usually most people don't live right next to their small business, but now you have
Yeah.
this baby that is essentially dying thanks to Roy Cooper, and
Right.
it's just it's Hail Mary time, man. We gotta throw more than 10,000 people,
I
and
think so.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to be marching, and we're going to be wearing Apex Fire Department shirts tomorrow.
Man.
So,
So tell me, like, he had a family, he had
well, he
wife,
was
kids,
actually
or
the well, he didn't have too much direct family, but he was taking care of his 92-year-old father, who now doesn't have anybody to take care of him. So one of my personal goals is I'm pretty positive that I have a decent case against the government right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that money and go and take care of him like he would,
wow.
because it's the only thing I know right to do. I was literally on the phone with him, the first day he said his depression was getting to him. It took quite a few phone calls to get him to pick up, and I was like, man, you scared the life out of me, bro. I was like, you can't
Right.
do that, and I literally told him, if we don't all make it, it was for nothing. And so
Yes.
there
Right.
there was a day of defeat for me that I just couldn't get over the fact that he wasn't going to make it.
Well, and I mean, that's just one of, like, literally maybe hundreds of thousands. I mean, suicide hotlines are up 1,500% call volume right now. Like, what is it going to take? How many people, how many people have to die for Roy Cooper to realize the scope of what this is really doing to people's everyday people just like you and me and everyone else, how grossly this is affecting us all. And it's really unfathomable. And then to just continue with the same like dog and pony show that we're all hearing on the news every day. It just,
Yeah,
mm,
and honestly, I want to know who the hell he's taking care of,
right,
because he's leaving our hospice without proper stuff. We've got nurses and doctors that aren't working, that could be
right.
working and could be securing these hospice places. So we got unemployed small businesses. We got people committing suicide, and he's leaving the people that are the highest risk to die. So who the
Yeah,
hell is he helping? I mean,
right.
it really makes me angry.
Oh yeah, and I think too we're going to start seeing an increase in people who are going to take their own lives because of the pain that they're in physically, not just depression, but like I know so many people have told
Oh
me,
no, me.
they
I,
can't get their medical needs met, their non-essential hip replacement, but they're in excruciating pain every day, or they can't get their shoulder surgery or their back, or regular massages, which are therapeutic, things like that. Like people, like I know for a fact people who their kids are maybe autistic or special needs, and now they can't get their regular therapy. Can you imagine being a mom with like a high needs kid, a single parent, or a parent, where your husband or your spouse was the person out working, being your breadwinner, and now everybody's trapped in one house with a kid that can't get their therapy, that can't get their outlet? Like I know I have friends in that situation right now, and they're all going on 7, 8 weeks now of basically being imprisoned in their own home. People are losing their, I mean, it's just the mental effects of what this is doing to people. It can't even be
yeah,
measured. It's like we
I
can
mean,
put a
I
number on it.
I
There's
can
an
attest
estimate.
personally to the back surgery. I had a back surgery that was scheduled that has been since put on the blacklist. So, and
Man,
I have a massage therapist that I have to really see once a week. That it's just been lots of ibuprofen and alcohol, unfortunately.
right, right. Yeah, it's a sad situation. So I just, I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, not to depress anybody, because I don't want, I want to try to be from a place of encouraging, but I feel like if we're not honestly looking at what's really happening, then we're not doing a job of reporting what's happening either. And let's be real here. Like that's what we're doing. We're bringing the truth to
Yeah,
people who are otherwise not getting it. People
yeah,
like
and
me and you who are and speaking out even when it hurts.
I know a lot of people feel defeated right now. I personally have gone through quite a few days of feeling defeated myself. I know where you're coming from and where you're at, And the problem was we were all angry. And when we were angry, you know, anger only lasts so long for good people. And what we needed to bring is heart. And we need
Yes.
people to start feeling it in their heart and start campaigning for us, with us, to get 10,000 people. I promise you, the political pressure is on Roy Cooper right now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if we go up in the numbers, we can get this thing done.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. And I know we've been encouraged by a lot of people, you know, in elected officials and quote high places. And, you know, there's a lot of power in this movement right now. So I want to bring it full circle and just give everybody a big dose of encouragement and come out and use
Yep.
your voice. And you know what? I'm honored to stand in memory of the people who are in that situation where they feel like, you know, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That's what I've always said. I did suicide support for my peers when I was a teenager. And that's something that's always just been close to my heart. But now people are looking, it doesn't look like a temporary problem right now. There's no end in sight with this. They don't have the ability to see beyond the current situation. I think that's why that number is going to continue to grow, because it's different when you can say, okay, this is something I can see the end of. But right now we don't
Right.
have an end in sight, you know?
Yeah, and I personally, I don't think people are understanding that. Yes, the date that he set is coming closer, but every state like ours extended them months.
Yeah.
Like some of them have already come out and said, "Oh, we're staying at home till the end of July 31st."
Right.
You can't base that number on what we're doing. We're doing
No.
it to end it now and permanently. And if we don't, he's just going to be like, "Well, they gave up. I'm going to extend that number."
Exactly.
And
And also
it's
it's even in the phases, it's not a set in stone number. It's, you know, if things are all going this way, if everybody feels safe, if everything, you know, looks good, that's not what all this started for. I mean, we had to remember what we were initially doing was not overwhelming hospitals. We've done that. So
Right.
it's time for us to get back to work. It's time for us to get back to our lives. It's time for us to get back to normal and not a new normal. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know, but
look at Georgia and look at Spain. You know, Georgia reopened last week. Their numbers are still going down. Spain is
right,
back to normal. Kids are back in school.
right.
We need to get herd immunity, and we need to have people that have actually got to
Right.
get the cure for the
Oh,
people
yeah.
that are higher at risk.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I was just speaking to a doctor friend who is never going to come out, you know, because of fear of losing their job. But they told me, like, we're just prolonging the inevitable, because all we're doing by staying in our houses is damaging our immune system. Everybody's staying home and drinking, turning to drugs, or sad, depressed, all those things weaken your immune system. And the virus is going to mutate while we're all inside. So we're all going to come out, and we're still going to have whatever we're still going to have to face whatever we're going to have to face.
Right.
Instead, we're going to have to face it in economic collapse, as well as whatever the virus was already going to do anyway. So,
You know, and one more thing I'd like to add, because I catch this a lot from people. Like, I tell people, this is the first time ever we've ever quarantined healthy people, and the biggest response I get back is, what about the Spanish flu? Well, the Spanish flu was worse than COVID. It actually was, and
yeah,
the quarantine was still voluntary.
right,
So
right.
you know, if you need that to bounce back at people that are feeding you information, man, pull out one of them history books like the ones I got behind me and look it up.
Right.
Don't rely on Google.
And also, I would say Woodstock happened in the middle of a pandemic. I was just
Yeah.
reading about
Yeah, right.
it was huge. It was like over 100,000 deaths nationwide, and the media hardly even touched it. So it does make you wonder. You know, it's like the whole thing with the masks, and I don't want to get into that, but they're saying now you can use anything as a mask, anything, just
Yeah.
anything. Well, kind of makes you wonder, like, if all those things don't work, the Surgeon General's coming out saying they're actually making people sick. It almost makes you wonder if it's just a way to get everybody to comply and go along with the program, just to see how far they can push us, really.
No, I
So,
agree with you, and I don't want to get into my opinion, but
no.
logistically and logically thinking, it seems like there's an agenda.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it makes I think that's the thing, is that every logical person is having that train of thought right now. Like,
Oh yeah.
what is the end game? So that's our question. Like, when can we just say we've checked the boxes, let us have our lives back? So I just feel like all these people, every day that goes by, people are getting closer and closer to the end of their rope. And I'm
Yeah.
so sorry for your loss with your friend. And I'm sorry for every single person who is facing this. And I just want to instill that encouragement back into the hearts of the people that that maybe are standing up right now and are still feeling like they're able to, because I have good days and bad days. We all do right now. This is an unprecedented and very, hard time for everybody. But if you're able to be there, pick a person. You don't even have to know their name, but somebody out there is struggling. And when you can come to Raleigh and when you can make your voice heard, you're speaking on their behalf too. And it is making a difference.
Yeah, and if you got somebody that's in the high risk category, fight for them too.
Yes.
Come out and support them too, because we're for that. And I think the media does a good job of trying to make it sound like we want to kill old people, but that's not the case. They're not being taken care of as well. So if you've got somebody in the elderly high risk category, come out. Convince other people to come out that feel the same, that just need that little bit of a push. And come join us, because I guarantee you, if we surround that block, this will end sooner.
I do. And on the note of elderly people, my grandmother's 92 years old. She was the youngest of 16 kids. She grew up as a very poor, like farm family in central North Carolina, eastern North Carolina. And she told me the other day, I've lived through the Great Depression, had 6 kids, was a widow, worked for 35 years to keep my house, put my kids through school. And now in my old age, somebody's going to have the nerve to tell me I can't go to the grocery store. No, I didn't live 92 years to have somebody telling me where I can and cannot go. So if there again, personal responsibility, if she knows the risk, and she does, she's capable of saying, I'm comfortable with that, or I'm not comfortable with that. And that comes back down to America, what we're made of, what our country stands for, freedom, liberty.
Right.
These things, we cannot let them die. We cannot let them die. And for every person that's losing their life right now, if we don't stand up and fight back against this, then their deaths are in vain. And we can't stand for that.
Yeah, and this is America. This is the last stand, last place
Yes.
freedom exists in the world. If we lose this, there's nowhere you're going to go that's going to be safer than America. And it's our duty as people, we the people, to stand up. And talking, I actually called the guy up in Michigan that they're threatening, 77 years old, threatening to shut down his barber shop. He feels the same way. It's our civic duty. This is what the Constitution said that you could not take away. And this feels like a test that we have to pass. That if we let them take this, the Constitution is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll just end it on a quote that I love. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jax. I appreciate you sharing your heart with us today. I'll see you tomorrow.
I got your back. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.